Hello, I'm Emmanuel Kunselman, and this is the panel for the Holomovement, embracing our collective purpose to unite humanity. And to begin with, I'd like to turn this over to Reverend Paulette Pike, keeper of the flame for the Holomovement, to set the spiritual tone of this gathering today. Paulette?
Thank you, Emmanuel, and hello, everyone. So to begin, we're just going to set a sacred arena by taking a moment to become still. If it's possible to do so where you are, I encourage you to close your eyes, lower your eyelids to outer distractions, and take a deep breath. Let the air go as slowly as possible, imagining you're exhaling all the way down to your pubic bone. Let everything soften. Let everything relax. We'll begin with this breath where we take 2 short inhales in and a long exhale out, like this. Take 3 of those breaths to help center us, focus us, and relax us. And we gently breathe and pause for a moment of centering silence. Take a deep breath in, hold that breath, and then sigh it out. So that we come together in our unity of purpose to give, to receive, to listen, to hear, to up-level, to be inspired, to be blessed. We let this word go as an intention to fulfill itself as decreed into the atmosphere. And we give thanks for this opportunity to come together now. And so it is. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette. And thank you all for joining us here today for this session on the Holomovement. The Holomovement is a word coined by physicist David Bohm. It describes the unbounded universal flow of consciousness and creation throughout the universe, everywhere, every way, in all time. It flows from the implicate order, the spiritual source of consciousness, to the explicate order, manifestation of the reality we live in, back and forth. But it is all one. It's just the flow between, the information exchange. And today we hope to have an information exchange with you to explain more deeply what the essence of the Holomovement means. This time, this critical moment in human history, share it with you so that you too may help find a deeper understanding of your part in the whole. But the true essence of this arises from the source, the beginning of our sense of all time, the implicate order, the source of consciousness. And to feel that more deeply, we're going to go back to Reverend Paulette Pipe to lead us in a short meditation. Feel the presence of, identify with that divine source. Paulette.
Thank you. So we probably haven't strayed too far from our centered space. So I invite you to once again enter that place of holies that resides within each of us. Close your eyes. Breathe in deeply. Exhale fully. And allow yourself to settle into this moment. Raise the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. And just hum, a gentle hum that will release the entire body. Mm. 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 Last one. Mm. Allow your shoulders to drip down from your ears. Tilt your pelvis up in your seat very gently. Let the soles of your feet sink into the ground. Feel, excuse me, feel your tummy push forward gently as you breathe in the entire breath and draw back to the wall behind you as you let go. Breathe in out. If there's anywhere in your body that's being held tightly, notice it now and exhale your next breath to that place as an invitation to let go and release. We give thanks for this opportunity to come together by divine appointment and divine order. We each have a contribution to make to this forward movement of the implicate and explicate order. So we breathe into that activity, we breathe into that calling, and allow light to fill us, streaming in and streaming out, reminding us that we are light. Expressing love is our holy function. This light is directing us into divine action. And so we breathe the light that we are and relax. And listen for that divine direction that is ours to embrace and to contribute. In this soft space, allow these words to be the truth of our collective and individual intention. For the good of all and to the harm of none, the Holomovement is emerging and evolving with amazing divine order, purity, power, and playfulness in order to serve and change the world for a higher spiritual purpose, for the upliftment of all humanity and all sentient beings on the planet, through the cosmos, and beyond. We are united in this holy purpose. We release all blocks, or resistance, or beliefs and behavior patterns that impede us from fulfilling this spiritual sacred soul assignment. And we come into alignment with that which is calling us forth to contribute to the forward emerging, evolving movement of movements. I release this word into the atmosphere on our behalf. It does not return void, but goes forward now to fulfill, as decreed, this holy purpose, light inspired, light filling, light intentioned. At one with this purpose, we bring our hands to prayer position, resting our thumbs on our sternum, our breastbone, and take a deep breath in here. Fully exhale. From that place of light and purpose in me to that place of light and purpose in you that brings us together in Holomovement. We now bow. Namaste. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulette, for your beautiful meditation and introduction, worthy of the divine essence of the whole movement itself. To begin with, I'd like to introduce our panel for today's discussion. First of all, I'd like to kind of go in order of chronological time that I've been associated with our fellow panel members, and beginning with Jill Robinson, who I had the pleasure of meeting 14 years ago when we worked together at Green Heart International. And Jill always served to be a great friend, wonderful support, hard worker, dedicated to the cause. Just one of the most charming, glorious beings I have ever known. Jill, I can't thank you enough for all the love and support and help you've given me throughout the years and continue to do so. So Jill, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how and why you're here today. Jill Robinson.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Get me all emotional before we start. I'm Jill Robinson. I've had the honor and privilege of working with Emmanuel for nearly 15 years. Time flies when we're having a good time. I am a writer, a storyteller, new editor. I co-edited the Holomovement anthology with Emmanuel, which I'll talk more later, but that was an incredible experience. So why I'm here today, I was privileged to be a part of that project. I've worked with organizations. I'm working with Purpose Earth, the Holomovement, Integral Transformative Practice International. In my previous career, as Emmanuel said, I was also marketing director with Green Heart Travel. But my passion is the written word, writing, poetry, and really in this sense, the language that we can use to bring and unify people together. So this has been an honor and an amazing adventure. And thank you very much, Emmanuel, for letting me be a part of this panel today.
Thank you, Jill. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn to Kurt Johnson, who I met in 2019 as the global purpose movement began to merge with Unity Earth. And Kurt and I met in those discussions. And I must say, I just can't say enough gratitude to you, Kurt. You are the holo mover and shaker of the universe itself. I've never seen anyone with deeper spiritual understanding, practice, energy, the ability to bring people together with infinite patience and drive. And you have really been the hub of this activity and the go-to guy for all holo purpose there is. Kurt Johnson, would you like to say a few words to introduce yourself as well, Kurt?
Yeah, thanks, Emmanuel, and thanks everybody who's here. That's an overly generous introduction, but yeah, what I really represent is the larger community of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, who actually joined then with Emmanuel and his vision for the Ignition event in Sedona, Arizona in March, from which all of this emanates and which we'll be saying more as the program elapses. So I'm really here in that capacity, and particularly as the coordinator for the 21 synergy circles or areas of engagement of the evolutionary leaders, which then parallel the emerging Holon projects and Holons of the engagement of the Holo movement. So had that involvement, and then also as one of the founders of the Light on Light Press that did the publication of the Holo Movement book, and that was an amazing adventure. If you look at that book, which is thought leaders from all around the world giving their vision of what this Holo Movement means as a phenomenon and also really as a destiny. So last thing I'll say then, I think most of you know that I come from a 40-year background in science. My doctorate's in evolutionary biology, and was in that career at the American Museum of Natural History for 25 years, and then also a major leader in the emerging interspiritual movement for the last 20 or 30 years, and teaching at the Interfaith Seminary in New York. So that straddle of science and spirit is my whole background and my passion. And so it's completely consistent then with the pleasure to be here and to share about this vision and direction of the Holo movement. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Kurt. And now I'd like to turn back to Reverend Paulette Pipe for a minute, who I first met in 2019 at one of the IONS conferences, was immediately impressed with her presence, her deep connection to touching the stillness within, and got to know her better through the evolutionary leaders and her work at the recent Sedona conference. And so pleased that Paulette has graced us with her presence and her deep spirit to work as keeper of the flame for Holomovement. Paulette, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got with us today?
Thank you. So like Kurt, I am a evolutionary leader and the keeper of the flame for the Evolutionary Leaders Council and some of the other groups that get together through the evolutionary leaders. I'm an ordained minister and I run an organization I founded back in 2009 called Touching the Stillness, which is a nonprofit organization for meditation, mindfulness, and spiritual practice. And through that vehicle, I offer meditation practices that help us touch the stillness within, because I believe that's where it begins. I lead retreats, I have a podcast, and just generally supporting where necessary as keeper of the flame for various individuals and organizations. I hold prayer vigils and support boards of trustees as keeper of the flame. And what does that even mean? Well, briefly, excuse me, what that means is that while a meeting is in session, I am holding sacred space. I'm also using my gifts as an empath to clear the space and keep the space clear so that discussions and debates and deliberations can take place in a clean and clear container. So it's like being the circle guardian of the circle. So that's what I do for the ELs, for the Holomovement, and for various other organizations and their boards of trustees. My background is as a journalist first, and then I moved into being a fundraising manager. That was while I was still back home in England, which is where I'm from. And now I live in Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, the Midwest, the center of the country, and sending my light and love out into the world. So that's a brief bit about me. And I love what I do. I do what I love. And I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me hold space on this panel today, Emmanuel.
Thank you for being here and holding that space, Paula. Really contribute to the essence of joy that is the core of the Holomovement. And speaking of joy, I had the experience of joyfully meeting our final panelist here today. As Kurt mentioned, there was a gathering of 80 people back in March in Sedona, Arizona, to ignite the Holomovement. And a couple of days before the conference, I was thinking, oh my, this looks like there's going to be a lot of work here and I could sure use some more help. So come on, Cosmos, lend us a hand and send some help if it's available. And Mariko Pitts, about that same day, had a rather lucid dream and realized that she needed to go to Sedona. And we were fortunate enough to meet each other at a party, actually, during the Sedona Igniting the Holomovement event. It was a pure joy to meet you at the time, Mariko, and the joy just goes on as we work together here in keeping the flame alive of the Ignited Holomovement. Mariko, you want to tell us a little bit about your extensive experience that brought you with us up to today? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emmanuel. And I must say, it has been an absolute joy working with you. God, it's been so synchronistic since we came together. And I think it's incredible that we met at a party, and it's been a joyous party since. But yeah, I mean, it's a pleasure. I'm the core synergist of the Holomovement, and I have a pretty extensive background. I come from public relations and marketing, and it's actually been over 20 years now being in that field. And I used to work in the corporate field and working with, oh my goodness, Wells Fargo, all these big corporations. And of course, being a deeply centered, very conscious, and being very aware, I think, at an early age into more the conscious field and working on universal principles, I knew that that was something that wasn't going to work for me very long. And so my career has really spanned multiple fields, and I've gone into designing and building and executing programs and events, global events. And I've, let's say over the past, since the past maybe 8 or so, maybe 10 years now, been working with conscious leaders, Thomas Hubel, Stephen Dinan, the Ship Network, leading the Uplift Foundation, working with Reverend Matthew Fox and producing and directing the Cosmic Mass productions. And so I've been all over the place in the conscious field, but really, I've been really called, I think, really recently. And I think many people, as we'll get into this conversation about the Holomovement, but I think many people like myself has really woken up and said, okay, what's next? Because we're playing a different game in the world right now. And what was really synchronistic, as Emmanuel was stating, of him calling out to the universe and, having that one-on-one conversation there, I did the same. And I said, what's my next level here? Because I feel like I have instructions that are turning on that aren't clear yet, but it's very clear that I need to do something bigger, and that everything that I've done in my life is leading to this moment to really help drive humanity, to help steer the ship in a different direction. And so it's been an absolute pleasure to be here in the Holomovement. It is an absolute yes, it was for me to come here and to work one-on-one with this beautiful team that's here on this panel, but also there are many others that aren't with us on the panel that are really here to steward this movement forward. And like I said, it's an absolute pleasure. And I also would love to just thank Ben Bowler and John Raymer and the entire World Unity Week team and everyone that's here. I can feel your energy. It's incredible. It's I know there's a lot really pulsating. The energy that's coming into the Holomovement is so incredible right now. And so it is a joyous experience. And I know that word is going to come up a lot, but it really is true to what's happening here and what we're building in this field. So I love you all. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Mariko. And indeed, you are right. It takes more than a village to do a Holomovement. And I think it takes really the whole world. It's a lot to ask that we might pretend to unite 8 billion people on this planet at this moment in time, but why not? The miracle of creation brought us here, keeps us together, and now it's our time to understand our mission on life and bring this village worldwide to every heart and soul who wants to join and recognize that we're all part of the Holomovement. We're part of the divine plan that's unveiling before our very eyes. And this concept of the Holomovement wasn't born recently. In my own mind, it goes back 53 years. It was 1970, my first day in college and my very first class. Sociology class, small group of forum, and the professor was Dr. Jeffrey K. Haddon at Tulane University. And he gave us a talk about the future. And he explained that there were many undesirable elements on the rise. The growth of population, the growth of world armaments, environmental deterioration, and of course, the development of technology, amongst many others. And he took a graph of the growth of these elements over time. And the graph revealed an exponential curve moving upward as we approached at that time, the year 2000, showing that the quantities were increasing so rapidly and the time that the curve went straight up and time was almost no longer there. And he said, this shows quite literally that our planet and our mission here on Earth is literally running out of time unless we do something to rectify these enormous challenges that our civilization faces. And this is the challenge for you, young people, back then in 1970 and here today in 2023. It is the challenge to all young people, old people, people everywhere. It is our time to wake up, take action, find our purpose, and resolve this singular moment in history and make a turn back upward to the implicate order to rediscover our divine self and put that into practice once again. At lecture in 1970, I had an epiphany. And after the class, I walked out into the center of the campus and I sat under a tree and I dedicated my life to finding a solution to the situation that Dr. Haddon had described. I went to the dean's office and changed my entire schedule so that I could travel and study abroad and begin what turned into a decades-long spiritual search for my own understanding. I had to write a paper on that concept of what I was going to do. I certainly didn't have the term Holomovement, but I did my best to describe that we needed to create a wheel, perhaps a wheel of co-creation as Barbara Marx Hubbard once envisioned. A wheel, and in the center of that wheel would be the hub that held together all the spokes and put it in motion and keep us rolling forward. And that hub would be some kind of sociological understanding of where people unite resources, love and joy, and bring it together with goodwill and understanding, compassion, cooperation, and sharing, so that all could work together more efficiently and more profoundly. I didn't know how to name it then, but I set out on that search. And in 1984, I was fortunate to meet another one of the great mentors of my life, Dr. David Tiedemann, who'd been a professor of mathematics for a quarter of a century at Harvard, and then developed the Life Career Foundation. And he was a specialist in vocational training and helping people find their paths. And when I described my path to him up to that point, I was slightly embarrassed because I'd done a lot of things, but I hadn't really accomplished that much. I'd been mainly on a spiritual search. But when he heard my story, he said, "That's beautiful. You're doing everything right. Just keep on. Keep working at it. And to help you on your way, I'm going to give you some books that you definitely need to read to get your thorough education." And one of the books he gave me in 1984 was Wholeness in the Implicate Order by American physicist David Bohm. And I read that book. It seemed a little bit complex at the time, not the most reader-friendly volume I had ever engaged in, but deeply intriguing. And not too many pages into the book, I ran across the term Holomovement. And Bohm described that is the unbounded universal flow between that implicate and explicate order. Everything seems separate. What does this table in front of us, this screen in front of us, have to do with consciousness itself? How can all be one? But yet it is, because it all comes from one unified source, and it all comes from that same essence. No matter how different things look, we are all the same. We share the same spirit of oneness in our hearts, our souls, where we are now, and where we will evolve into the future. And Bohm described this unbounded flow, as the Holomovement. And I remember back then, nearly 40 years ago, I said, that's it. That's the name. That's what it is. But I had a lot of work to do. And so I set out on my own path as a social entrepreneur, public speaker, a writer, and I spent many, many years preparing for the time that I felt the Holomovement should be presented. And that time has come. And to begin with, we started a series of discussions some 5 years ago with a number of people to develop the idea of the Holomovement, what the concept would be. I'm deeply grateful to the late Terry Patton, who came on early on and devoted hours and hours of time together discussing the concept of the Holomovement. And his executive director at A New Republic of the Heart, Mason Ewald, who's one of our core team members today, also joined in the discussions. And as we move forward, others joined us. Jude Curvan, Ben Bowler, Dwayne Elgin, many others. And little by little, we developed the core principles of the Holomovement. And we felt, I think we might have something here that could have some broad appeal, that could help people understand their mission, why they're here, and put it into practice. And so it was time to conceive of next steps. We wanted to hold an event that became Igniting the Holomovement in Sedona. And we also decided it would be good to have a book to explain these core concepts and ideas. And we wanted the book to represent the Holomovement itself, to be an anthology, a group project with as many possible contributors that we could find and work together with. And to create the book, I turned to my dear friend, co-editor Jill Robinson, to help to bring this into being, to find the people, to describe the chapters we needed in the book, to edit them. And we did the whole thing in less than a year, start to finish, in time for the Sedona event. And gosh, Jill, I am so grateful to you for everything you did in that process. And of course, Kurt and Light on Light Press and Bob Atkinson, the editors, Patricia Ariel at Sacred Stories, incredible help and support you gave us as well. But Jill, maybe you want to add some perspective from your experience of creating the book and putting it together, and what you learned and what you feel that the book might offer. The book is called The Holomovement, Embracing Our Collective Purpose to Unite Humanity. Jill, please share some of your thoughts on the creation of that book.
Oh, it was a journey. That was, but to think we did it in time for the Sedona event, when you said, yeah, by the way, the published date, the goal is to have it in hand by March. I was like, oh goodness, here we go. And thinking back, what an amazing example of what can be accomplished when you have a unified vision and goal. And like you were saying, we had over 50 contributors. Many of the chapters were collaborative efforts. I mean, this book was very much in the spirit of the Holomovement, from the outline and the structure of, we wanted to show, the science and the spirit backing up this wholeness, and from the science and spirit of our reality to what we can do, practice and action, and then working together within the chapters, and then all of it coming together in this, it really was radical collaboration and action to have it ready by the Sedona event. it was a humbling experience. And for me personally, just like I've said this before, but a real masterclass in just so many elements that I, was humbled to receive the content from so many wise leaders and just the generosity of time and sharing of wisdom. And so I'm so excited about this book. And if you haven't read it, it's on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. But it does for me show, one, what you can do when there's a unified vision, and two, that is a call to unity, but not uniformity. This has been said before. I think Jude Curban has said it many times as well. And you can find that in the book. And that's what also was so inspiring to me, was the many ways that we can describe our wholeness and what's supporting our reality in language, and that we need that. We need different ways to say it because it resonates different ways with people. And it was just an exciting project and such an honor to be a part of. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. Any particular revelations or specific thoughts that came to you in editing the book that you might want to single out or emphasize before we move on?
Goodness. It really was reading so many chapter contributions from so many different writers and professionals and leaders. It really was how diverse the language could be around this one theme, and how we all really do contribute to this wholeness, and how everyone's needed in sharing what their gifts are. So it's kind of more of a big vision. I mean, I have copious amounts of notes of details that stood out, of like values that I was reading about, and altruism that I got to work with Rhiannon with in the chapter, and just so many key points. But the bigger vision was, we all have a very vital piece to share. And I think of George Leonard with my practice with ITPs, like, don't hoard yourself, and how the many ways that we can share and give. And in this book, you can see it said different ways, and how it's all just so necessary for transformation. And so I think just seeing the microcosm of what the Holomovement can be within this book was exciting. It put me on the spot.
Yeah, that's what I usually do. That's what I'm here for. Thank you. Yeah, beautiful answer there. And George Leonard's quote about don't hoard yourself, I love that, and I think that applies to all of us. I think it's one of the things we're all learning in our work with the Holomovement is just don't hold back. What have you got to keep in reserve? All of us, let's just give it our all. That's what we're here for. This is the big game. It's the key moment, and it's time to give it our all. And speaking of that, before I move on and giving it your all, I'd like to give a word of gratitude here to my wife, Laura Rose, who has been one of the most instrumental influences, support, help, love. I mean, gosh, when she came into my life over 30 years ago, it was just such a blessing. And she's not on the panel today, but she's in my heart, and she's the panel of all times. And so just a very quick, deep sense of gratitude, love to Laura for all her help in this. But the Holomovement takes on then a very large perspective, because it purports to try and be a movement of the whole, of bringing people together, not only individuals, but small groups working together as holons, and larger groups and organizations and movements of movements combining together. And there is no one I've ever met who's had a better concept and a better ability to really hold that space of bringing people together than Kurt Johnson. And Kurt has just created so many opportunities for us to do that. Kurt, I'd love to have you comment a little bit on, is it possible to bring numerous groups together and build a movement of movements such as the Holomovement hopes to do? What's your vision of that?
Well, I would say, obviously that's why we're all here, and that all is a really, really big all. One of the important things about this term, the Holomovement, is there really isn't a there's not the Holomovement, we're it, join our group. It's just Holomovement. It's what David Bohm said is the global cosmic movement toward wholeness, and how if we're stepping up to our evolution and to our full human potential, we're going to get on that track toward that goal that all of us know about in our hearts and we share at a global level. So it's so important for people to realize that no movement that's arising globally in this time of moving toward wholeness is operating in a silo. We're really trying to move toward that wholeness and synergy that everybody on this call has been talking about. So in talking about then our part of that, just in the sense we're really just one hub, one vision point, one focus that's arising to become a part of what really is a global phenomenon that has to happen if we're going to avoid a catastrophe and incredibly difficult times in the future. So we know this in our hearts and we need to step up to that. Now, to do that, what we really have to rely on is caring, because we're going to be bringing together not only our network, but networks all around the world, groups and peoples that are rooted in very, very different worldviews. And not only different worldviews, but sometimes drastically different worldviews that even have a history of conflict. So this is an incredible mandate for us to step up to finding the synergy and the coherence when we're bringing that much diversity together. And there's a wonderful quotation from Aristotle, which I often mention, which is, a true friend is someone who cares about the world as much as you. A true friend is someone who cares about the world as much as you. That's what we all have in common at a global level across all of these movements, networks, and organizations that are trying to move in this direction of Holomovement. So that's really the what of it. So the other thing I want to talk about then is the how. If that's the what, what's the how? Well, it's pretty simple. Not only we, but many around the world will have this impetus to do what we did in March, where the Evolutionary Leaders Circle and other organizations joined with the seminal vision and the resources that Emmanuel had brought forward from Purpose Earth and Unity Earth and their whole network, and say, okay, we're going to arise in this landscape to take responsibility to become one of those hubs that can propel this vision. So we got 80 to 100 people together in Sedona. What do? You present this vision and you kind of draw the line in the sand, just like Colonel Travis did at the Alamo. And you say, can we really step up to this? Can we really do this? And what really has fulfilled me and made me feel really hopeful about all this is the coherence between the dynamism and the structure of the vision at the Sedona conference as it unrolled through a vision track, a tech track, an engagement track, and all of the elements that would be needed to make something successful. The coherence now of that and the energy from that to what's now become the birthing of the Holomovement apparatus itself. And so what I just actually wrote down was just a quick definition of that hub, and saying that what that hub aims to be is a well-organized, serving and coherent hub for multiple organizations and networks to collectively increase their impact. And I'll just say that again, a well-organized and serving coherent hub for multiple organizations and networks to increase their collective impact. Because all of you know, the only way we're going to be the trim tab and turn this world around is if we're all becoming much more effective impact networks. And all of the lead up in our discussions before the gathering in Sedona was all of these groups who together wanted to increase their collective impact. So to do that, then we really end up with what Emmanuel and Mariko and everyone's been visioning in this unfolding Holomovement that hub that they're setting up, which is really a serving community that's able to be a hub for uniting synergetic communities, events, initiatives, and activities, and also media and message. You really need this combination of synergetic communities, events, initiatives, what we call interventions at the United Nations, things that make a difference, and then also a media apparatus that can get the message out, because all of you know we have to move beyond the choir that already knows this, that in their hearts knows from source and from heart and just global discussion, the necessity for this kind of a movement, but actually then makes it happen. And all those groups realizing that they're not the only kid on the block. This is going to happen in multiple places with multiple leaderships and foci all around the world. And we're going to have to create a culture that's really, truly good at how we do that. And that's the last thing that I want to talk about is what that culture needs to look like. Because all of you know that even in the spiritual community and the transformative community, one of the difficulties we've had is competition among ourselves. Because the phenomenon is that many leaders in many places are getting downloads from source about where the world needs to go. They're very similar, but they're also very specific and unique in their own ways. But they can't have a relationship that's like this. They're going to have a relationship that becomes synergetic, where all of them can understand that these are multiple downloads in multiple places that are needed to then walk together in really, really skillful ways. So that actually is this balance between autonomy and synergy. I think all of you know this. I mean, Ben Bowler, everything that they've done with Unity Earth, John Raymer, this is the lesson we've all learned. You have to respect the autonomy of the individual downloads and motivation that every leader is getting. But then you have to have the skill sets and the heart to move that into synergy so those are moving in a confluence and not in any way that's really competing. So in the real world then, what that ends up involving is co-branding, and not only skill in co-branding and sharing and who's getting the credit and who's got their names on the banners and the marquee, but also creating new ways that collective branding together can work. Actually, the emerging Holomovement is a good example of that. You get all of these groups together at this meeting in Sedona, and then from it comes another name, another brand, but a brand that's actually trying to serve that larger whole. So in the long run, what we're really looking for then is these hubs, like the emerging Holomovement, the particular apparatus that Mariko and Emmanuel are talking about, that can serve this landscape of cooperative communities, initiatives, events, activities, interventions, and then media that can actually promulgate this global message, which is actually the cosmic message that we are all one, everything is profoundly interconnected. The implications of interconnection within science, within spirit, are incredible. They imply that we actually are each other. We're all 1,000 faces on the same person as reflections of the divine. And if this planet's not only going to survive, but live up to its cosmic potential and what may be a pan-galactic civilization, who knows, we don't know, then that's our role. We have to step up to having made a success on our planet of coming from all of these diverse backgrounds, cultures, language, and races, all of this, and actually creating a global civilization that actually works for all. The reason we're here is we all believe that that can be done. And a huge hats off to Jill, to Mariko, to Emmanuel, to John, to everybody who's a part of realizing this dream together. So I think enough said from that part, but that's everybody's dream, and let's simply, let's make it happen.
Thank you, Kurt. That's so beautifully said and well explained. It's very tall order to bring all that synergy together. And I'm hoping we can all do it and understand your wisdom and follow that path. And it requires what your life work has really been is working for the essence of interspirituality. And you're the co-editor of The Coming Interspiritual Age. And I think you've shown us all the way to come together in that sense. But maybe a few words from Paulette here. You were in Sedona, Paulette, and maybe just a few reflections from your experience, your knowledge of interspirituality as a reverend, and what do you think? Can people find this interconnected, synergistic core that Kurt just so beautifully described and hold that spiritual essence? Share some thoughts with us on that.
Thank you. Well, I believe so. And I think I saw it in expression in Sedona when we came together. I remember feeling in the first few days that there was a sense that we all had a different idea of what the Holomovement meant, but we found a place to synergize together because we were all answering an inner impetus. And I speak for myself because when I first heard about the Holomovement, there was a spark ignited within my soul that just knew I had to be part of this, to bring what I could to the platform, to the arena. Because it's something like Kurt was just saying, it's something we all want, it's something we all desire, but we're not always sure how to go about it. But what the beauty of it is that everybody has a gift, and Jill was saying the same thing. We all have a gift, we all have something to contribute. So we bring our gifts to what is emerging and evolving in this synergistic and symbiotic way. So for one of the things that came out of the question in Sedona, where, what does it mean and what really is it? I'm not sure we all got the answer that we were seeking, but one thing that did come out of that is the idea of tapping into source as the way to be led and guided forward. So as a result, what has emerged out of our time in Sedona is a group of participants who've come together. We call ourselves the Holo Holders, and every month we're going to come together. We started this week, Tuesday, actually, and every month we come together and just hold sacred space, a creative space as well for that emergence and evolving. We're like seeing it in our mind's eye. We're aligning with the divine within us. We're aligning with universal mind and seeing it come forth, seeing all the blocks fall away. Let there be light, and let this whole emergence be filled and fueled by light and fueled by love. And I'm very excited about that. So anyone's free to join the Holo Holders who were in Sedona. You'd come at any time. And so I love that too. It's like there's a dedicated space. If you're free, if you're drawn, if you're inspired, you come and know the truth together. And it happens in silence, because I believe deeply in my soul that that's where the greatest work takes place, is in the stillness, in the silence. And so we have a dedicated time of silence within that 30-minute session. And so I'm very excited to be the keeper of the flame for this, and to also be part of the Holo Holders that emerged out of it. And it was very exciting to walk away from Sedona with the, I think we've said it several times today, that joy was the centerpiece, like the cornerstone. And so this doesn't have to be boring and laborious. It can come from a place of joy, because we are all expressions of that joy, of that light. And that's the undergirding, the underpinning, together with the stillness, the silence, and our collaborative and collective intention.
Thank you so much. Indeed, it is holding the joy and the light and center. And that's, I think, the sharing and the message that we want to keep alive throughout this, now that the flame has been ignited. No small task you have there, Paulette, for keeping that flame going. But we are so grateful to you for your beautiful presence, your understanding of the interspiritual synergistic core of this, and we shall all endeavor to work together to keep that flame lit. And as we move forward then, we might say, what is our call to action? How do we put this to work in the explicate order and bring this to reality and make a difference in our troubled world? And for that, our core synergist, Marty Kopitz, has undertaken and shouldered the task of moving this forward now that the flame is ignited. Mariko, do you want to share some thoughts about where we're going from here and how this is going to work?
Well, yeah, it's a big mandate. And, I think Kurt mentioned this. He really so beautifully brought this up about where we're going. And I think the bigger field of where we're expanding, what the Holomovement really represents, and where it's going, the multiple demographics, the variety and diversity of where we're going, we have to really reach a variety, a big group of people, okay? Because if we're looking at mass, this is a meta movement, and it is a movement. And I'll back up a little bit because it is important to know that it's a movement. We aren't an organization. And there are core group right now that is stewarding this movement forward. So we're laying the tracks so that we can actually create a network. And there's a technological aspect to what a network looks like for connection and belonging, and to really have this conscious collaboration come to fruition. And it's a really big task. And I mentioned, I think in my bio, when we were talking about the intro, of not playing a small game. And I know that all of us here, and every one of us on this call, and everyone that has joined the Holomovement and has been ignited by this in some way, we're in that place where we're understanding that there's something bigger that needs to happen right now. And it's beyond the bubbles that we've been operating in. And so we're moving into a much bigger playing field. And so from that perspective, I think it's really beautiful that the theme of World Unity Week today is cooperation, because that's really what this is about. It's about conscious collaboration. It's a call to unity. It's about playing together in interoperability. It's bringing all the organizations and the partnerships that Kurt was so eloquently speaking about, but it's also the individuals. The Holomovement is a bigger field for everyone, and everyone has a role within it. And it's really for, and I would say, people who are, I think immediately who are called to this are people who actually really understand at least their purpose. They're coming in, they know what they want to do. And at the same time, there are people who don't know exactly what it is that they want to do, but they're here and they're looking for inspiration. They just want to be in the field of other change makers and conscious creators together. And so one way outside of organizations coming into the field, which there are many in partnerships that Kurt was talking about, is for individuals to really play a different game and really take action, because the Holomovement is about action. It's, I think Emmanuel mentioned before about holons. Our concept of holons, which means you are a part and the whole simultaneously at the same time. Okay, so our concept of holons within the Holomovement is actually creating small groups, 3 or more, but you can start small, it can be as big as you want, but small groups coming together to take action, to do conscious work, because there's such a variety of things in society that needs to get done. We really, to steer the ship into a new direction, it can be peace projects, it can be climate related projects, it can be human development projects, spirituality. There are many things that people can do, but it's about getting into action. It's about igniting and coming together and actually creating and expanding and spreading this flame under a unified field in the Holomovement together. So coming together for that community, for the belonging aspect of what we're doing together, to actually feel each other, feel the life force of all the work, the great work that's happening all around the world, because holons are actually the microcosm of the macrocosm. It's all of those little things that we're doing that make a huge difference in where things are going. And how we actually make that difference, but to feel each other, to be able to share resources, to fuel each other, to feed each other in this field is a whole other playing game and network that we're talking about, that we're building now. So I think For individuals, it's really good now to start thinking about what it is that you're called to do. What are these passion projects in the world that you're interested in doing? Start coming together, build your posse, build your group, come together and play and do it from a place of joy. The Holomovement we're not here in fear. This is about building that new future so that we can catapult ourselves into this new transformative age together, because it's not about fear. Although we can feel that things aren't going in the right direction for humanity, it really is about a place of joy and being in that high frequency of love where we catapult into this new age together. It's not about necessarily changing what isn't working. It's about just creating something new that is a better future for all. And so that's what we're here to do. It's a big mandate, but it is reaching into new communities all across the world. You know, it's, what is it, that 3.5% that you get to reach, where you then have that transformative edge where a movement is then flowing itself beautifully. It's emergent and it's moving. And that's what we're here to do. And so we're setting the foundations, the technological aspects of building that network, but also really building the community and bringing in the partnerships and the organizations that are doing these amazing work already in the world, but doing it together and building that community so that we can the interoperability can happen together in a conscious way. So I don't know, maybe I stumbled on your question a little bit, Emmanuel, but if there's anything else you want me to add to it, I'd be willing to do that. I do know that the first thing you'd want to do is just go to our website, it's holomovement.net, and just join the community, because we'll be sending out new updates and new things that are coming as we create this network, this new community platform together, where we can all come together, share our resources, and start to build this sociological meta movement together. But that's a good start, as more information is going to be coming online soon.
Thank you, Mariko. I think that was very, very well explained. And we're on our way. We're coming together in action. Indeed, it is action. Action is the divine source. You know, in the formula for quantum physics, it's energy equals frequency times h. And that little h is the input of action into the universe. That is what makes the world turn. And we, as conscious beings, have that ability to make those inputs of action. That's what we're here for. That's what our mission is. So don't hold back. Don't hoard yourself. Don't wait and see. The time is now. Boy, is the time ever now. You know, right now, actually, just coincidentally, today at 2 minutes to 11 a.m. Eastern time, just as we started this session, was the summer solstice. It is the time of highest light, the great turning. The time is now. We're so grateful to World Unity Week and Ben and everyone who's put this together to give us this opportunity at this grand moment of great light to offer this program today. In the introduction to the Holomovement book, it is described that there is, as David Bohm described, an ontological pilot wave guiding the creation of the universe. And it has gone through 3 great miracles, 3 huge turning points of the wave. The inception of our universe, by whatever name physicists and cosmologists might want to call it, the Big Bang, the Big Breath, Big Meditation. It started us all. And then there was the turning point at the trough of a wave where life appeared on Earth. And then as life progressed, we had the dawn of human consciousness at the crest of another wave. And now we've descended and we're in this moment, and we are in need of nothing less than the 4th great miracle in the history of our universe. This is the time. It's now, here today, June 21st, 2023, at the summer solstice. But let's explore that a little bit. Why now? What is your calling? What calls you to the Holomovement in this singular moment in history? I'd like to open this up to all of our panelists to reflect a moment, because what we're talking about here is something singular, something that's never been really done before. That's bringing together humanity and a collective purpose. Can we really do it? Is this the time? And if so, what does that mean to you? So, who would like to share some thoughts on that small question?
I'd like to just say something. Scott put a comment in the chat quoting Michael Beckwith that says that that we shouldn't worry about what's collapsing and what isn't sustainable, but create the new system, the new paradigm. And I think that's something that excites me, although everything that's going on as we look out in the world can be worrying and concerning, but it's dismantling for a reason. And so this whole period and what is inspiring me, and I hope it others, is the process of release. And if you take the word release, embedded within it is ease. So in that spirit of cooperation, and as you said, today is the summer solstice, in that spirit of cooperation, let there be light as we release and find our space of ease.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll speak to that as well, because what's interesting historically, every time there's a paradigm shift at a global level, whether you look at Julian Jaynes' view of history, Ken Wilber and Integral's view of history, because you mentioned Terry Patton, who was a great integral scholar, or it'd be Don Beck and spiral dynamics. Whenever a new paradigm arises, the first thing that happens is that people everywhere get it in the heart. They get it at the level of vision and at the level of heart. That's called a state. But what it means relative to the social structures that would reflect that ideal has not yet been born. So what happens is, and this is what's really important, you go through this period of experimentation, and we're in that grand period right now. The period of experimentation, what are the structures, what are the ways of living, the ways that we create things that reflect that new paradigm that we understand in vision and in the heart. So that's what really makes it such an adventure that we can bring joy to, because we're really now in this opening the gate to what are the ways the world can look like that reflect the vision that we really know in the heart about our oneness and what that implies. So it's an exciting time relative to where we're at this cosmic and global threshold.
Just jump in real quick too, just following that. Yes, and to both Paulette and Kurt, and watching my 4-year-old son kind of bring it down to a practical level. This can be very big, like, how do we do this? And sometimes I have to remind myself, this is this moment, and in this moment. This isn't a one-time thing, we figured it out and now the trajectory is going. And I mean, I just do that with my son. It's like things went great here and now the next moment. So I think it's also that mentality of, the focus and the surrender, the vision and the release and stillness of, is this the correct course? Do we need to correct course? What's the experiment? And where's the love? Always coming back to the love and joy of what's the next step. But it just really in the day-to-day life of just reality, just knowing that it's not just one moment, it's every moment. This is ongoing.
The never-ending moment, indeed. We're getting there. Never-ending process. The call to action. Martico, did you want to add a few thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do. Just reflecting, I know, the whole world, we all went through a pretty intense few years together, it's like, and one of the big things that came out of it was the reflecting on connection and belonging, and the lack of, because the pandemic really brought that out. It's like, oh my God, it's human connection and it matters. And there is a pretty big awakening that is happening on this planet right now. And it's really incredible that the Holomovement is coming in, is entering into this field, into the collective field at this time because of this awakening. People, I mean, I don't know anyone right now who isn't saying, I'm in my bubble, but something is off. And I'm starting to pay attention to other things that I may not have been paying attention to before. And I need to do something, but I don't know what to do yet. And the Holomovement is really perfect at this time to come in because it really helps people. It lifts people up into finding what their purpose is. Maybe it is. It inspires them to rise into what it is that they may actually be interested in doing and taking on. Because I'm sensing in the collective field that there are so many people that just want to do something. And this is a way to really help guide them through that. But it's amazing to feel into this field because I've never experienced this before. Never experienced, and I don't think any of us have experienced this before on a human level of how many people are turning on instructions. Nature is talking to us in a different way. Our intelligence, our collective intelligence and our internal intelligence of why we're here is turning on. And what we do next is that's the here and now. It's like Joe is saying, it's like be present, be in that stillness that Paulette is talking about, staying in that stillness and saying, okay, what is that next moment? What is that next thing? Being in that present space. And so I think for all of us here, it's really important to be, to really have, to tune into what our responsibility is and our ability to respond to what's happening in the world. Not so much our responsibility, which we all hold for the greater good, but also how are we responding in this moment? How are we being when we show up in the world? How are we, what is it that we are providing in our ways of being, in our vibrational state when we show up? And that matters right now. Because it brings people are longing for connection. They're longing for that belonging and coming into a movement that really resonates with that type of frequency, high frequency of love is everything. And it matters more than the action itself. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I'm saying, it doesn't matter. But if that smile is authentic on my face, I have then captured someone. I have then moved and the evolution of moving people into a higher state of being is happening. And so it's a really imperative right now that we show up in a higher vibration because of what we're coming out of and into, because normalcy isn't a thing anymore. It's like, throw that out there. We don't even know what normal means. Everything is different. And so it's an incredible time to have the Holomovement here today so that we can move forward together in cooperation and see how we can really shift through love, by being love, this new transformative age. So just wanted to add that.
Indeed it is. It's a time like no other. And there are no roadmaps for the way forward. The roadmap is working together, bringing our ideas together through Bohemian dialogue, creativity, and a source of giving the altruistic spirit in our hearts. Today, I've seen many questions, hands raised. We can't really continue the discussion today, but I see GaiaUnion.com has offered their Zoom link here in the chat to continue the conversation. So we welcome that after we end today. If you want to go to that Zoom, that's zoom.us/my/Gaia.union. So we thank you for that offer and encourage everyone to continue the dialogue with Gaia Union, with anyone who cares to do so, because this is a dialogue for all. This is the singular moment in history. This is the Holomovement finding its own essence. It's not an organization. It doesn't belong to anyone. It is part of us all working together. We have just a few minutes left, and then we're going to play the Holomovement anthem to end this session today. We think the visions in music will say those 1,000 words that maybe we haven't been able to convey. But in a minute or less, if each of you would like to contribute some final thoughts to bring our program to a close and then play the anthem, let's just have a final thought from each of you, please.
Again, I'd like to say something so that while the video is playing, people can address this. One of the questions that has been coming up in the chat is how to join the Holo holders. If you put your email in the chat, we'll gather those and add you to the mailing list.
And any other thoughts you'd like to add, Paulette, while you're there?
Hang on to your hats, buckle up, show up, respond in love, and let's do this.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge and a hats off to the historical role that you've played here, Emmanuel. This has got to be a solstice event for you as well. I mean, you've shepherded this dream, I know, for 50 years. You've built your life around creating the resources that could help something like this happen. And so I think all of us feel privileged that we've been a part of all of the steps, you know, the book, the event, and now the emerging of the Holomovement Hub itself, to really serve the vision that you were a focal point for historically. And I just want to just bring that to the floor here as we close. So huge thank you and acknowledgement to this fellow who has a name, Emmanuel Kunzelman, and he has a bank account and a credit card and other things with the name on it, but there's something more going on there.
Well, you're very kind, Kurt. It's really nothing about me as an individual. It's about all individual service to humanity, doing whatever we can in any way we can in humble service of the Spirit. Thank you for your words.
Can we have a few minutes meditation before we end?
Well, we're going to have final thoughts from Jill and Mariko, and then we'll play the anthem.
Okay.
Well, I just want to say, you know, let's get out there and make a difference. Continue to do that and do it together. I mean, like Paulette said, let's rock this. Let's do this. You know, let's have fun. And that's really what this is. Just go out there and have fun. You know, bring some joy back in the lives and everyone's lives, and just inspire. Let that spread the flame. Let it continue to grow, continue to move. But yeah, I love it. I love it. And I'm so happy we're all here together. So
spread the flame of joy. Indeed we shall.
I'll make
Jill,
it quick.
you get the last word.
I'll make it quick because everyone said amazing things. But I will say to not self-censor what you think is going to make a difference. Everybody's prayers and action. You don't have to start a project or a nonprofit to change the world. Everyone has a ripple effect. Everyone's kind actions, listening, and also donations, and also those big projects you are working on. They all are a drop in our Holomovement pond that have a very positive ripple effect. And together we can make a very big wave. And let's ride that and let's have a good time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you all. Thank you for being here today and joining us. If anyone does want to make a donation, you can donate to purposeearth.org, one of the primary sponsors of World Unity Week. All donations made at this moment for the Holomovement panel will go directly to supporting the Holomovement. That's purposeearth.org in combination with Unity Earth, one of the driving forces behind these productions. Many thanks, deepest gratitude, love to all of you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for finding your place in the Holomovement, for taking action, building this together. We're going to show the universe itself that we understand our mission. We see the way forward, and we'll do it together. Blessings to all, and let's have a view of the Holomovement anthem to end our session today. Thank you all so much. Many blessings, and namaste.
We have entered an extraordinarily rare interval in human history, a choice point in our collective journey, a space between the past and the future where the lives of countless generations ahead will be profoundly impacted by the choices we make now.
I believe it is both subtle and large, and something else so extraordinary that there's almost no name for it, because a new human species is ready to emerge.
Participation in this transformation involves collective attention and communication on a planetary scale. This creates coherence and clarity of direction. Simply put, it is the Holomovement in motion.
It is the great universal source itself, herself, ourselves. It says it is time to wake up now. It is time to do and be what you were born to do.